All right. Hello and welcome to Virtual Coffee Lunch and Learn Edition. Virtual Coffee's mission is to be a welcoming tech community that allows room for growth and mentorship at all levels, and to create meaningful opportunities for learning, leadership, and contribution for everyone. To find our code of conduct, events, or to learn more, you can check out our site, virtualcoffee.io. We're really glad to have all you here today with us, and I'd especially like to thank our presenter, Lucia Cerchie, for being here. And with that, Lucia, if you'd just like to introduce yourself and then we can get started. As mentioned, folks, feel free to put questions in the chat and we will get to them at the end of the talk, or if you don't put them in the chat, just hold on to them and we'll take care of them then.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm Lucia Cerchie. I'm a developer advocate at Confluent, and Confluent provides managed cloud platform for Apache Kafka, and then also some things like stream processing. And I've been a member of Virtual Coffee for a couple of years, and I've benefited greatly from the community. So I'm always happy to do one of these lunch and learns. So, and want to thank Nick and Kirk for hosting. That's the assumption I'm making is that you're both hosting today as well. Really appreciate it. Yeah, that's the link for Confluent. I'm going to share my screen now so we can get started. Present. Looks like we're going to have water mix today. Okay. All right. So the basics of Apache Kafka. What is Apache Kafka? It's an open source distributed event streaming platform, which is a little bit of a mouthful, but we're going to break it down today. So, I click. One thing the first thing we're going to look at is what an event is. But before we even get into that, I want to mention that what event streaming is. It's a bit of a paradigm shift from batch data analysis. So with batch data analysis at the top, you run a query on a collection of data. It can take between minutes and hours to days, and then you get your results. Whereas with event streaming, the first thing people notice is that the latency is in milliseconds, but also it's small bits of data coming in real time. So people often compare it to like a central nervous system, because you can have a request come in from an API, and then if it's a request for an order, like it can show up on a marketing dashboard so they can see how many orders are there, but it will also show up in the customer orders database immediately, right? So that's just something to know. It's kind of a paradigm shift over from batch data analysis. Okay, so what is an event? Let's say you say, hey, my voice command app, hey Alex, or whoever it is, order groceries on my grocery app. What happens from there is that your voice command is recognized by the phone. It opens the app, it begins an order, and then that triggers a lot of API interactions. So from there, what you can see is that the agents behind events are both humans and machines, which is important to remember, I think, because in the end, I think it's mostly your use case that determines whether you're going to use event streaming, right? But I was listening to a panel the other day that was kind of debating batch streaming versus event streaming, and what they said was like, well, machines have infinite patience. And another person said, well, actually, but their actions happen in real time. So it was just a fun anthropomorphization. But anyway, the point is events are all around us, and thinking in terms of events is how you start thinking in terms of Apache Kafka. So let's say you had another voice command to order Christmas presents. All of these could be organized events, the voice commands, the API interactions, and the opening of the app. Those could be organized under a logical component called a topic. So what does an event look like for the most part in Apache Kafka? You're going to have a key and a value. And also, you'll want to add a timestamp. And this is usually serialized. It can be in JSON. However, Avro and Protobuf work better with Apache Kafka. If you're not familiar with those, it's basically like JSON, but some extra rules to make sure that it's formatted strictly and that it's easy for the different components of your system to read from it. All right, so this is a topic. Say we had a topic called purchases that like reversed flipped, quotation mark is going to bother me for a little bit here, but that's all right. You can see that each event in the topic it's underneath the same like idea of a purchase, right? A purchase event. They have different keys here because let's say those were the only 3 events that happened, and they could all go under the same partition there, but we'll see in a minute that the keys actually determine what event is assigned to which partition, which I'm getting ahead of myself. The main point here is there's one topic and it has all of these events under it. Now, you can add to events, however, you cannot a topic, you can add an event to a topic, you cannot change a event in a topic. So this is kind of interesting to me. I'm coming from a GraphQL world where you can do a lot of deletions and mutations, right? But this is different. Some people say, oh, it's because you can't change what happened in time. But then you would say like, oh, Lucia, you can change what happened in the past. The mind is, neuroplastic and memory is a creative act. And you can say, I didn't take the cookies from the cookie jar, Lucia. Like that never happened. And truly, like with many kinds of data formats, you can change events, right? But this is an append only log. It's not a queue. Some people coming from different data backgrounds are used to working with queues. And when you read an event there, it does not persist, right? But in a log here, the event persists, which is really helpful. So yeah, it's just important to know is that you can't change or delete an event once you've added it. Now, whole topics, you can disappear those based on a time that you configure. But it's just an important thing to remember that this is an append only log. Okay, so each topic is separated into things called partitions. And Apache Kafka is set up so that everything with the same key will go to the same partition. It has like a mod function that runs on after it hashes the key. Other things to know about partitions is that they are replicated. Usually the default factor is 3. That way, if a server goes down, you still have your information. So that's super helpful. What else do I want to say about partitions? Okay, so where do topics live? It's on clusters of servers. Let's see. So you can use Confluent to create a cluster, which I'll just show you the documentation real quick here and drop it in the chat. Creating a cluster with, oh, that's interesting. I changed my speaker view. With Confluent is a matter of setting up some configuration and then hitting the create cluster button. So I've already done that. I want you to know because I'll be showing you some code later where I'll be creating some clients and connecting to the cluster. Okay, so what is a producer? Producers are the ones that produce or send messages, write messages, right? Which are events, write events to topics. More than one producer can produce to more than one topic. And also this like producers aren't in groups. It's different. They're a little bit more like logically simple than the next thing, which I'm going to show you, which is how do we read from topics, right? That's with consumers. And one consumer group can be reading from what multiple consumers can read from one topic, and one consumer can read from multiple topics. And there's also, you can group consumers into the same group, and then that way they kind of share the work of reading from the partitions. Okay, so now we're going to look at creating a producer and consumer client with Node. Just pardon the dust here while I pull out my project. All right, now, Nick, I'm going to ask you, is this big enough?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. One thing I do sometimes is I hide the sidebar, and you can make it even a slight, like you can zoom it in one more if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Awesome. So the first thing that I want to show you is how I set up the configuration. So for every Apache, or for every project that you create with this client is called Node RD Kafka, and I can spell it out for you and get you that resource afterwards. You're going to need at least these methods of configuration. Now, there's other ways that you can, other configurations that you can add that will really, they can affect performance, but since this is an app with like 10 rows of mock data, we don't need more than these to connect to the cluster. So we're setting where the Bootstrap servers live, and this is just a sample file. Obviously, my username and password are not username and password. Setting the security protocol to send the messages over. This again has to do with security, and then setting your username and password. Now, I think, yeah, we'll go to the producer first. So there's the package. And then this function creates the configuration map. Now, you might notice that I'm requiring a utility file here, and that's reading from this getting started .properties file here. And you might wonder, like, why aren't we using a .env here? And that's because it's for consistency's sake. So this piece of code is part of a tutorial for multiple languages. Like there's Python, there's C+ in it. And all of those had the getting started properties and utility file patterns. So that's what's going on there. Okay, so this is creating the configuration for the producer. Everything here is, we're pulling that right from the properties file with the exception of this parameter. And that is a delivery report callback. It's like very short variable name, but it's that's what it stands for. And it's set to true. That's just so we can get errors back from the producer. And in this function, the producer's created, or it's a function that will create a producer for you once you pass a configuration and a delivery report to it. This method here, producer.on, fires when you pass it, or when it sees the event that you passed it. So on ready, creates the producer, sends the delivery report, and then if there's an error, it will raise an error. Hi, sweetie. I have, sorry, my daughter's making a face at me through the glass door. And then you have to call connect on the producer in order to connect to it. Now, in this example, this is, setting the path to configuration and then calling that configuration function. Basically just generating some mock data by, we'll be looping through these arrays. And the topic is purchases, so you have users and then items. Now, this producer variable is created with that create producer function that I showed before, and then we send it a topic, a key, and a value. So you let the producer know which topic it's producing to. That's important to do whenever you're instantiating one. And then you would send it the key and the value. And in this case, these keys and values are created by looping through and finding the random values in those arrays. And then you would call the produce function here. Now this flush function happens when I disconnect the producer. So in this case, it's going to happen when I hit Control-C. Sometimes on the broker, you could have like maybe a queue of events that you'd want to make sure are sent out to Kafka before you disconnect it, and that flush function makes sure that happens. All right, so let's run the producer. All right, I have a bar of people here, so I'm going to move it so I can see what I'm doing, but hopefully you can all see that. And there you can see that it's console logged the events to the topic purchases, or not console logged the events topic, produce the events, the purchase topic. And then it's console logging the key and the value so that we can confirm that that's happened. Now we're moving on to the consumer. Now this create config map function is going to look very similar. In this case, we're adding a group ID because every consumer that we create with this configuration is going to belong to the same group. And this group ID is just this string here, which is the name of the Getting Started tutorial. And then creating the consumer, we're calling it from the method from the client. And this is an important piece of configuration to note. So it's auto offset reset, which might sound like automatically reset the offset, but in reality, it means if I set it to earliest, the consumer will read the messages from the beginning, so we won't miss any, quote unquote miss any. They would all be in Kafka either way, but we'll see them all console logged. Okay, and then again, you're gonna call the connect method to connect the consumer, and in this case, since we're not mocking some data, the function's a lot simpler, and we just have to tell it what topic to consume, and then you can also get the value of the key and the value from the consumer message using this function. Then you have to call subscribe to make sure it's subscribing to the topic that we just produced to, and then consume. And then when I Control-Z, it'll disconnect the consumer. So let's run that part. Make sure. Oh, it looks like I have it running over here. So you can see that it's already consumed. I must have just forgotten to exit the window, and then that would have disconnected the consumer. But you can see it's already consumed the event that I produced. So let's produce one more time, and then we should see those coming through. It was pretty fast, but you can see them coming through there. So yeah, that's the basic terminology behind Apache Kafka. We have events, which are things that happen, right? There's a little bit of logical determination behind what you want to put into that key and value. And then those events are organized into topics, which are then split into partitions. And the topics receive the events from producers, and then you can read them with consumers. And that completes my talk. I'll be putting some resources in the chat in the moment, but I want to hand it over to Nick for now, and then take a look at the questions too.
Yeah. No, thanks so much for that talk, Lucia. It was a great primer on Kafka. Like I said, I knew nothing about it before this talk. So aside from the name, so yeah, I'm just gonna go through the chat. I think I kickstarted it with question here. Yeah, you were talking about partitioning. Is that like sharding, like splitting up databases? I know it's not necessarily a database, but same kind of concept, like just bit by bit, like depending on certain keys, I guess, like.
Right. So there's different like assignment strategies depending on whether so it does depend on the key, right? So if the key is the same, it'll go to the same partition. So, and then also, if the key is null, it'll like round robin assign it. So if that's, I feel like you probably know more about sharding than I do. So if that's a fair analogy to you, but that's definitely it's definitely based on the key.
Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. I'll just read out the questions just so so Joshua was asking, in what cases would we want to use auto.offset.reset being earliest or latest? I'm not sure what Josh was referring to, but
Right.
maybe you can speak to it.
So that was, I can share my screen again to show it too. Just going to share my window, and that's in the consumer. So here, so it would depend on whether you want to read those messages from the beginning or the latest is from the last message. So going back in time. Does that make sense to you, Joshua? Cool. Yes, it does. Kirk says, what was the more popular use case? I've heard lots of people use it for logs, and some talk for using it as a message broker. Kirk, could you say more about that? Because in my opinion, it's both, right? So, let's see.
Kirk is speechless, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not sure if he can talk right now, but
can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I can hear you.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't know. I'm trying to, I guess they're all, it's like once you abstract into like stream of data, that's like lots of things. It's like almost everything, right? It's just like, there's some things like emitting messages, and like Kafka's like, yeah, I could be there and I could do that. So I guess it's more of a, and I don't know, you know, if you have context on this, do you find like people use the system more like, let's say like internally, like within applications to control things like logs or like messages like from the applications, like things at the back? Or do you find it like more in like the middle layer between say like a client side application and like servers or something like that? If that question kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. It's applicable to like a lot of different use cases. Often it is like that end, like not necessarily for application logs, right? Because application logs are they're a little bit different in terms of like they're not necessarily, again, that like it's similar like analogously, because it how to put this, like they don't disappear when you read them, right? They're still on the screen. But that's kind of where it ends. So I'd say, yeah, it's definitely much more the second thing that you said with between clients and servers. Not necessarily like application logs, even though it is like the data structure behind it is an append only log. Does that help? It does.
it does. He's speechless. That's how much it helps.
Yeah. Yeah, the use case is, it's definitely you can use it in, like, I have one use case that I've been working with on my own with a small demo project that I'd like to share soon, but it's you can use it to organize your microservices and decouple them, right? Because the producers and the consumers don't have to know about each other. Like you can use a schema registry so that the data format is the same and you don't have collisions there, right? But since they don't have to know about each other, it's a great use case for microservices are a great use case.
Cool. Yeah, I had a question as well. So, because I'm familiar with event sourcing, because when I worked in fintech, so the streaming is similar. Or you were saying you can have an add-on for that? Is that what you were saying before before we started recording?
Right. So there's things called connectors. And so if you wanted to, like, every time something gets added to a MongoDB database, it gets produced to your Kafka stream, you can add a connector like that. Does that help?
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can
yeah.
add them as syncs too. So anything that comes in is consumed by the.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, because I know one thing for like event sourcing is you get auditing out of the box, because basically, like you were saying during the talk near the beginning, like events happen, you can't erase an event, it's like you can correct an event by having another event, like that. At least that's how I'd seen it done in event sourcing. So it's the same idea in Kafka as well with event streaming.
Right. So like in order, maybe talking about like performing analysis or transforming the events, then you could do something the way you would do it with Confluence, use KSQLDB, which is like this query that is emitted across the event, so it doesn't end until you end the query, if that makes sense. But basically, that would transform the events as they come in, and then would write them to a new topic for you to consume in the format that you wanted.
Okay, cool. And you can, and like, I mean, you can literally just have any kind of consumer and create any kind of like, it's not say like world zero oyster, but you could literally create anything like you want to. You can kind of pipe it to whatever you want to, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I'm not sure if you answered this from Kirk, but he was saying like a pub sub agent kind of system, or maybe that was referring to what you were talking about before.
Yeah, like I want to say like I am new to the data world as I'm new to Apache Kafka, but as far as I've seen, yeah, it is like a pub sub agent kind of system.
Okay.
But the data streams, as opposed to there's a type of real-time data processing that is just batching very small amounts of data, and that's different from data streaming, because the structure behind it is different. This is Apache Kafka is a platform that holds the append only logs in the topics, whereas with micro batching, it's just batching but really fast. So it's like if you have a cron job that's running like every 2 minutes, then it's maybe time to start thinking about Apache Kafka. But
okay. Yeah, I did have one other question. I don't know if you can speak to this or not. Like, is something like Kafka overkill for like smaller companies, or it's really as soon as you just start having a lot of like data coming in, this is when it kind of makes sense to put in something like Kafka, and if it fits the use case, or you know what I mean? Like it's not like I'm going to put Kafka when I'm like deploying my blog, because that makes no sense. But like, I don't say I
was going to say, like, that's the one thing I could tell you. Like, you probably, if it's marked down, then you're probably good with,
but like if I had like some kind of small website where, like maybe I don't know, I somehow rolled my own e-commerce solution, but it's like, it's literally, I get like, 10 orders a day. Like it wouldn't make sense for something like that, probably, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I can ask my coworkers more experience in system design, but I'm gonna attempt to answer it because I have an idea about it, which is if real-time processing matters to you, then you might still want to use it. So one of the first applications that one of my coworkers worked on with it was when you walk into a gym and swipe a card, then Apache Kafka would take that card swipe event and it would send it to the application that tells the teacher at the gym for your class that you've arrived. It also sends it to the application that's analyzing how popular the classes are, and it sends it to the POS. So that's, which, that might have, I don't know how large that application was, but if it's small, the real time might matter still for that teacher who's in the classroom. So yes, point of sale. Sorry. Point of sale is like, I usually think of like Stripe when when I hear POS.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I'll let it sit here for a second if folks have any other questions, but the slide deck that you had there, will you be making that available for us to take a peek at, or
I think I can with my level of Canva. Yeah, but I probably can download it and then just publish it to the virtual coffee channels, I'm sure.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And then a couple of resources. So there's portion of our website called Confluent Developer, and there's a bunch of resources there, and it's kind of nice because it goes, depending on your learning style, there's something there. So there's like tutorials that are either video or text, and then you can go to the documentation or you can start building right away. There's even like more formal courses that are part video, part text. So I find that helpful. And then I've been listening a lot to my coworkers' podcast, which it's called Streaming Audio.
Okay.
And I'll put that in the chat too, Christian.
Yeah. I'll definitely give that I'll check that out. I don't know about others, but I typically go on long walks at night these days and listen to podcasts. So I'll definitely give that a listen.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Cool,
I didn't mean to start it right away.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
There's an
okay.
there.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we don't have any other questions. So I just want to give a special thanks to Lucia for being here and for all of the attendees as well. And we look forward to keeping this discussion going on in the Slack and for VC. We'll be posting the video online to the Virtual Coffee YouTube channel at some point. I don't have a date for that. They usually go up pretty quickly though. And then I'm not sure who we have hosting next week. I think it might have been rescheduled. So just check out the Virtual Coffee schedule for our Lunch and Learns there. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to the community maintainers. We're always here to support you and to answer any questions. And yeah, all right. Well, thanks again, Lucia, and have a great day, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nick.